Within really a number of days, we've gone from Donald Trump lobbying for the Nobel Peace Prize for denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula to whoops, looks like nothing's happening. Walk us through what has been going on, then we'll talk about the forces that are acting upon it.
Well, I mean, I think that you have to go back, I think, a couple of weeks to recall that, the Trump administration was already taking a victory lap on North Korea, claiming that Kim had agreed to denuclearize, that he was, they'd already achieved all the concessions that they need, that it was really just a matter of going to the summit, and Donald Trump would, immediately receive his Nobel Peace Prize afterwards. And this Nobel Peace Prize thing is actually quite serious on the right. They really and truly believe that Trump is going to receive it for, as he puts it, he wants to do this for the world, not just for America.
Right, they have to, because so much of Donald Trump's presidency is in reaction to Barack Obama.
Right.
That they need him, and he probably feels the same way. Needs to get the Nobel Peace Prize to sort of maintain some parity with Obama.
Right, and even I think it has to be a better Nobel Peace Prize, because he's going to, he will be the only president, as he puts it, the only one who ever understood what was going on with North Korea or really made any effort to, bring peace to the world and ensure that this, dictator, who he now says is excellent and honorable, as he's going into these talks. In any case, yes, he needs to get that in order to be better than Barack Obama. Otherwise, he's failed. So all this was carrying on, and I think we were all a little bit wondering. I mean, there's a part of anybody, right, who, we certainly would prefer to have some kind of a deal with North Korea that would allay fears about a nuclear confrontation. I mean, I don't care, I'm as hostile toward Donald Trump as anybody, but if he could pull it off and it was something real or even just temporary, I'd be, if it's like the South Koreans said, they can take the prize, we'll take the peace, right?
Yep.
So, give him the, that's what he needs, give it to him, whatever. But, but as it turns out, of course, Trump is being played hard by North Korea, and now it appears perhaps China as well for other reasons. As it turns out, the North Koreans issued, everything was being set up for the meeting, which is right on, what is it, 2 weeks now, that they 2.5, 3 weeks, that they're planning to meet in Singapore. And all the plans were going forward, and then all of a sudden North Korea just launches a tirade complaining about John Bolton saying publicly, which the idiot did, that they were going on the Libya model. Now, everybody in the world, except Donald Trump, of course, knows that the Libya model was, you give up your nukes, we will help you economically, and then not help them economically, and then overthrow them, and they end up being killed in a ditch. That's the Libya model.
Literally, yes.
Literally.
I mean, you say to the leader of a country, we're going to model you after the guy who gave us what we wanted and then was murdered, in the street after being sodomized, essentially, I think
right.
is what, I mean,
right.
that's
like saying,
that's the pitch.
We're going with the Tsar Nicholas and his family model, I mean, this is like, so that didn't go over very well for obvious reasons. Now, the North Koreans knew very well who John Bolton was. They had dealt with him before because he was the head of the arms control department at the State Department back when the Bush administration backed off of the earlier, sort of strategy to engage North Korea back in the early 2000s. And, they know who he is. There's no doubt about that. And they understand what he has been saying constantly for the last 2 decades, which is that, there has to be regime change in North Korea. So they get that. But they waited until just a little bit before the meeting was scheduled to take place to launch this angry statement, taking exception to Bolton's discussion. Now, Trump came out on TV then and said, oh, no, we're not doing the Libya model, and then went on to give an incoherent rant about confusing the nuclear deal that the U.S. had done with Gaddafi back in the early 2000s with the overthrow, and somehow or another conflating the two things as if they were all part of the same thing, and then threatening the North Koreans with that again. So that didn't really work. He clearly doesn't know what the Libya model is and doesn't understand what saying it means to the North Koreans. So he basically, kind of doubled down on John Bolton without meaning to. I mean, it's pretty clear he doesn't understand. Now, throughout all this, we're getting reports that Trump is refusing to take any briefings. He's not doing any preparation. He doesn't.
Heather, let me just back up for 1 minute, because we should also add there's a couple of other things that took place in preceding this. First off, this is not the first time we've heard this Libya model
right.
comment, right? I mean, we about a month or two ago, we heard it then as well, which was also sort of ridiculous, but it just everybody just sort of blew through that. I would also add that about 2 weeks ago, there were planned joint exercises between the South Koreans and the Americans, and North Korea said, "Hey, we're not going to go to South Korea now because of these exercises." And the exercises were more or less shut down to preserve this. So basically, what we're dealing with is a North Korea that had been waiting for some type of leverage point to start to do what they're doing now. It's unclear how this is going to end, of course, but there was a lot of speculation when Donald Trump went and gave them essentially, the idea that we're going to meet with you without any preconditions was a big mistake. That the North Koreans were sort of we're playing Donald Trump, and this would be consistent with that. But there are also, and you wrote a piece in Salon about this, there are also people in the Trump administration who have an agenda to make this fall apart. We need to take a break. When we come back, let's talk about the sort of the cross currents within the Trump administration in terms of foreign policy. And Donald Trump is actually, it appears, being played by both the North Koreans and his own advisors.
Right.
We're going to take a quick break. I'm talking to Heather Parton. This is Ring of Fire Radio. We'll be right back.